Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and it's time to get wealthy. You're going to learn exactly what you need to know and do to finally achieve the level of financial success you desire and you deserve. Does your faith play a role in how you manage your finances? Well, our next guest is here to show us how biblical principles can be foundational to achieving financial success. But here are the 3 takeaways from today's show. The first is finances are the second highest topic quoted in the Bible. Your faith can also help you to weather financial storms. And then finally, the Bible can be your financial roadmap to success. Well, that's certainly what our next guest believes. Dexter Jenkins is a faith-based financial mentor with more than 20 years in the financial services industry. He's passionate about helping families build generational wealth, and that's exactly why we're here, because we want for Dexter Jenkins to help us learn how to get wealthy through our faith. Welcome to Get Wealthy, Dexter.
Yay! I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
Well, I'm glad you're here as well. And like me, you spent a great deal of time in the financial services industry yourself. And so I'd love to give the viewers a little backstory on your path. How did you become involved in financial services and now want to shift from selling products to actually teaching people how to build wealth?
Well, I think it goes back to, as always, thank you for allowing me to come on your show and talk to your tribe. I think my journey really started even before I got in financial services. It started with my dad. My dad is a barber. And so my first business school was watching him and other men like him, men and women like him, stand behind a chair day by day and really begin to talk about entrepreneurship and so on and so forth. So I got my start there, and then I went to Northeast University in Boston, Massachusetts. And then after I got out of there, I still had an itch to learn more about business and financial services. And so I started my career with Prime American Financial Services, a company underneath the Citigroup umbrella at that time. I was probably in my early 20s at that time. And so, I was in that arena selling life insurance and investments and sitting down with families and talking to them about term insurance and mutual funds and all that for 20 plus years. And then I transitioned into pastoring, which my wife and I started our church in 2012. And what I found, Deborah, was what I thought I had left behind as I'm dealing with my people in my congregation. I kept finding out that they needed the practical principles as well as biblical side of how do they manage their finances. And so that's sort of my story in a snippet.
That is quite the journey. And I'm intrigued by your intersect, right? With faith and finances, but it coming, kind of in reverse, if you will. And on this show, Dexter, we use a framework for financial success, mindset, strategy, and execution. Yes. And I want to start with mindset because I think it's very illuminating that we have so many people who are church goers. Right. And as I shared, and I'm sure you will know as a pastor, that money and possessions is the second highest topic quoted in the Bible.
Right.
And so if that is true, where's the disconnect? When did you realize with your own congregation that they were not maybe achieving, that they were struggling? Let's be real, right? In spite of their faith.
Right. I mean, I started, like I said, we started in 2012. And what began to happen was I began to sense that even though I'm talking about things like prayer, I'm talking about things about reading the word, I'm talking about things like fellowship, I'm talking to members who are dealing with losing their houses, or I'm talking to members who, because of a lack of the handling their finances, and they're working 2 and 3 jobs. And so what I'm finding is that they're not coming to church because they don't have a handle on their finances. And so I recognize that some of the practical skills that I had picked up prior to me pastoring, I needed to bring into our congregation and into my role as a pastor. And then I think as an African American pastor, I have a responsibility to talk to my congregation about the real things of life, and not saying that obviously spiritual things are not, but the real day-to-day things of how do you put together a spending plan, how do you make sure you have life insurance so you're not having a GoFundMe page if something happens. How do you plan for retirement because you are not going to work forever? And so I found that that's what I needed to do. And so we've been doing that ever since, probably since 2013, 2014. We spent a significant amount of time talking to people about their finances, their faith in their finances, and showing them how to marry those two successfully.
Well, that's exactly where I want to go, because I want to double click on something that I think at some point within the church was very prevalent. Right. And that's the gospel of the prosperity gospel. Right. Name it and claim it. Right. A lot of that we could just believe it and it can become true. And so I'm a Christian. Let me just be clear. And and I have had my own faith walk, and also had the opportunity to speak on stages with very prominent pastors. Right. And what I think is like sometimes, and I'm going to stick with mindset here, right, that in our community that there's this disconnect between right, faith and finances, because we're thinking we can just believe it and it could and it shall be given to you, right? If we want to go into scripture. Right. And so I love that you're a pastor, because I would like to go deeper into that mindset that I think many of in our community have, and how to help them understand right, an even greater biblical passage, and that's faith without works is dead. Exactly.
Well, I think part of what we have to do if we want to bridge that gap between the spiritual side and the natural side, because that's what we're talking about, is use the Bible as more than just a Sunday book. I've always viewed the Bible as an instruction manual about how to live life on every level, how to handle your finances successfully, how to be a good father, how to be a good husband. And so I've always come to my congregation, anybody I talk to about their faith and their finances, I said, go to the scriptures. As you already quoted, the Bible speaks extensively about scripture, particularly Proverbs, Ecclesiastics, those 2 books in particular where King Solomon wrote, and so I have people spend a lot of time there, because he begins to share with us some of the things that we need to do practically in order to, build wealth. And I think a lot of times what we haven't done in the church is we haven't done a very good job of preparing our people to live. And I always say this, in order to spend eternity with Christ, all you got to do is die. So once you leave here, you're going to be with him. But, what are you going to do in the meantime? Or we come to church on a Sunday. Well, okay, what do I do the other 6 days? And so I think what we have to do is begin to use scriptures, not only for just comforting ourselves on Sundays, but then also what do we do the other 6 days? So the Bible begins to talk about, owning land, and scripture talks about, being aware of co-signing for individuals, and it talks about being diligent as opposed to lazy. Those are things that we need to instill in people's minds that come from scripture, so they can live not only on Sunday, but also the rest of the week.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful the way you frame that. Really, I mean, if you think of both aspects of that, only dealing with faith on Sundays, right? When that needs to be throughout the week, as well as finances. And I think from merging the two from a practical and spiritual side, that's the point that you're making. And I want to ask one other question of you, particularly around mindset. Right. If you look at African Americans, our educational attainment has really increased significantly, And I would love to get your thoughts on, why do you think just the topic of finances itself is not covered, not only in the church, but in our formal education either?
Well, I think we confuse our I call it scholastic education with financial education. They're two totally different things. So I can be extremely educated. I can have, advanced degrees, but not know how to budget, or not know how to invest in mutual funds, or not know how to buy real estate. And so I think we confuse the two. And so I was talking to people, I said, listen, you could be extremely smart. I'm in Boston, Massachusetts, where there are Harvard, MIT, Northeastern, a number of financial institutions, educational institutions around us. But that doesn't mean that you know how to successfully handle money. And then I think also because of the financial trauma many of us, our community, come from, we carry that into our finances. Finances, it's really simple. It's dollars and cents. But then I always talk to people about, there are certain beliefs that you have about money. There's certain thoughts that you have around money. There's certain feelings you have around money. And even though you're going to work every day, or even you're building a business, those things can be hindering you from going forward and building wealth. And so I spend a lot of time talking to people about what I call the inner game of wealth, because we've got to do the inner work first so that we can have the outer.
That's good. And when we come back, Dexter, what I'd like to go into is the strategies that you're implementing. I know that you have your own framework around achieving financial success. So when we come back, we're going to talk about strategy. Folks, we've talked about mindset with Dexter Jenkins, who has really merged faith and finances. When we come back, we're going to talk about the practical strategies that you can use to merge your faith with your finances. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Let's be honest, as successful women, we're crushing it. Maxed out 401k and Roth IRA? Check. Aggressive savings and investments? Check. Yet, the freedom our success was supposed to buy can leave us stuck on the six-figure hamster wheel, watching retirement slip further down the road. There's another way. Get coaching courses and community at wealthyu.com.
Hi. I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free to download, free to use, next generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you help build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation A crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and we're talking how to get wealthy through faith and our finances with Dexter Jenkins. Dexter, welcome back, because now I want to talk about strategy. And what I'm really excited about is, you have created an actual framework for financial success, which I think it fits perfectly into this strategy conversation.
Right.
So share with our viewers your framework for financial success that you've been applying as you are helping families build generational wealth.
Yeah, I mean, I in all my years of studying finance, so whether it's from the Bible or whether it's a formal class I've taken, I've found that there are three things that I don't care who you're talking to, whether I'm listening to some of your teachings or other people, I've found that these three things are common. I found that people are either talking about stewardship, they're talking about ownership, and they're talking about entrepreneurship. And so I call that the SHIP method, SHIP. My wife always said, you need to spell it out to people because it sounds like you're saying something else.
Nothing like a little humor thrown in there.
Well, you
know what I thought of though, Dexter, that I thought was brilliant. Well, I thought of the three ships, right?
Exactly.
Like something traveling.
Exactly.
And so I'm fascinated around that framework. So let's talk about the first ship.
Right.
Let's sail the first ship so that we can get people in the right frame of mind.
Well, the first ship is stewardship. And so stewardship really deals with, the successful handling of your dollars. I remember talking to people. I've sat out hundreds of, I won't say thousands, but I would say easily hundreds of clients when I was selling mutual funds and all that. And you're really dealing with how do I successfully handle my finance that comes into my hands, And so that's what stewardship talks about. And so we talk about in that framework, we really deal with I call a spending plan. Other people call it a budget. And so, we look at when I was doing it, and I still do on some level, I talk to people about making sure you're saving at least, 10% of your money, putting X amount here, and everyone has their own different way of how they would do that. But whatever you decide to go with, but there has to be some way that is stewardship where you tell your money where to go as opposed to you just letting it go willy-nilly. Because if you don't tell it where to go, it will just be all over the place. And so, I used to use the example of we don't necessarily do that anymore, but when we used to have to cash our checks and you would go to the bank and cash it, and the next thing you know, you got a check for just say $1,000, and then you look at on by Monday, Tuesday, you spent X amount of dollars. So where did that money go? Well, you didn't give it an assignment and you didn't tell it what to do. And so the first thing you got to do in stewardship is you've got to tell your money where to go. So to even back up a step further from there, we assess where you are because you don't know, you can't go anywhere until you know where you are first. And then we begin to have people put together some sort of spending plan where they're telling their money where to go and what to do.
So we're telling that stewardship is telling our money where to sail. I'm going to keep with this. I'm going to keep with this analogy.
That's basically what you're doing. Yeah. You tell them where to go. Right.
Yeah, and I do think also, Dexter, that the way people get tripped up is that they take care of everything.
Right.
And then there's nothing left over to do the important things. Right. And I would love to get your view on what I call reverse budgeting. Okay. Right? Prioritizing the things first, like your retirement, your savings, that cash reserve, and then managing the rest more effectively. Right. And because I often think that what happens is it's when we do the spending plan or just budgeting, line items, what happens is that we prioritize I don't want to say the needs, but what happens is then the other things aren't left over. And because it's not like a have to, right? That we really have to begin to think about our financial future as a have to, and put that as a priority as opposed to the other way around.
And I mean, you hit the nail right on the head, so when I'm dealing with people, we're talking about, because some of them believe in the concept of tithing. And so we talk about give honoring God with 10%. And then we talk about necessarily making sure that you put your money away. And, particularly if you have like a 401k and things of that nature, And some people have 401ks and things of that nature that match, which is free money. Everybody like free money, and so really to your point of the reverse budgeting and making you a priority, because one of the things that I always talk about in the book of Proverbs, King Solomon talked about the fact that Proverbs chapter 10, he talked about the ant. And he talked about the fact that the ant prioritized saving during the summer because it knows that winter is coming. And I always tell people, listen, the winter is when you don't want to work and when you can't work. And so what we got to do during stewardship, we got to prioritize ourselves, recognizing that, hey, winter is coming. And if I will put something away for myself, I can be in trouble.
Yes. And Dexter, finally, one of the other points that I wanted to get your view on, whereas there's this methodology that I hear being espoused by financial gurus. It's like pay off all of your debt first before you invest. And what I think that people don't understand is one of the most valuable assets is time. And time. And so when if you wait to invest, then you're losing time, and then you got to play catch up. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
And I love what you just said, because it's always that catch-22. And I think with personal finance, the key word is personal. No one plan works for everybody, but I'm in the ship that you're in. I'm in the boat that you're in, meaning I believe that we should take advantage of time. And in particular, the younger you are, if you start early enough, what will begin to happen is your money will begin to work for you. And if I build wealth, and if I build enough assets working for me, those assets will allow me to pay off my debt. But if I don't, get my assets moving, I'll never have the opportunity to do that. And then I also believe this, Deborah, that a lot of times when people are so focused on paying off debt, they're not focused on learning how to invest. So I believe any debt strategy should have an income generation and a wealth building strategy attached to it.
That's good. That's good. Now, when we come back, I want to double click on more of your framework. And we've talked about mindset. We've been talking about strategy, your 3 ships or boats, if you will. So it's stewardship, it's ownership, and then it's entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little about executing on your framework of the 3 ships. So folks, we've talked about mindset. We've talked about strategy. Next, it's all about execution. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free to download, free to use, next generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you help build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation A crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.
Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about how to get wealthy using faith and finances to accomplish financial success. My guest today, who's helping us get wealthy, is Dexter Jenkins. Dexter, I love the way you frame that a debt strategy and a wealth strategy need to go hand in hand.
Exactly.
And I absolutely believe that. And so now I want to talk a little bit about execution, because
Right.
it's an inside job. We can get all that together. We can have strategy, but if we don't actually take action,
Right.
nothing happens.
Right.
And so to that end, if you were talking with your someone about the first thing they need to execute within your framework, stewardship, entrepreneurship, and stewardship, ownership, and entrepreneurship.
Right.
What's the first thing someone needs to do if they're listening to this program?
Well, I mean, we've talked about the inner game. So we talked about mindset and strategy, like you said, looked at some beliefs and all that, because I believe that that's 90% of it. But the other 10%, like you said, is the execution. And I believe it begins with you starting and getting a sense of where you are. A lot of times we don't know what's coming in, what's going out. I don't know what do I have a 401k? I know none of this stuff. And so really begin to get people to sit down and begin to look at things from a perspective of what do I actually have? I always use the analogy of, if I'm at a mall, we don't go to malls anymore, but we did. I'm at a mall, and I'm trying to go over here to this store, and I find that map. It will say I'm here, but I need to go from here to there. And so starting where you are and getting a sense of honestly where you are, I think is where it begins to start. And then you begin to put together what I call these baby steps, so you begin to, maybe look into your, I was putting together a spending plan, but then looking into my retirement things at work, beginning to reprioritize some dollars, because really in the bottom line is, I tell people, there's only two ways to really improve your finances. One is I got to decrease my expenses. Number two, I got to increase my income. And so I keep people focused on those two things. What are ways that I can decrease my expense? Where's the waste? And so it could be in subscriptions. It could be I got cable that I don't watch. If it's a married couple, a lot of times there's an overlap in their insurances. And so we begin to focus people on those things. And so I believe that's where it starts. And now also, I think pulling people into a community. I mean, you have a community, Wealthy You, and I run some things, because I think a lot of times people are lonely and they're trying to build wealth by themselves. And wealth is a team sport. You got to collaborate, obviously, if you have a spouse within your household, but then also with other trusted individuals who have your best interests at hand, who really want to see you become wealthy and not just make money off you.
I love that. And I love the fact that you mentioned something that I absolutely believe, that you need to be around like-minded people. Yes. Who have the same goals and aspirations that you have, and that the level of your financial success is directly correlated to the socioeconomic status of the people that you spend most of your time with.
There you go.
And not to say, you know what I'm saying? So I think that, and let's go back to belief, right? Because I'm going to tell you something that happened just the other day. Right. I put up a marketing banner about a workshop that we have coming up, and it's called The Secrets of the 1%, How to Build Wealth Regardless of the Recession or whatever. Right. And the first thing that I got was, well, what do wealthy people know? Why are they the 1%? They're greedy, right? And so my retort back to them was, don't hate the player, right? Hate the game. Like, if you don't know. Don't mess with me. I'm from Detroit. So you want to chop it up? Let's chop it up. Right. Right. And so I want to, and I think this is a perfect conversation to have with you, because I think so often it goes right back to our beliefs. Somehow money is evil. Somehow wanting to accrue wealth. Somehow, why do you talk about it all the time? Well, I'm not talking about the latest reality show. Why can't I talk about this? And so I believe that in our circles that, some of us are just talking about things, others are talking about ideas, and that our beliefs can often get in the way of elevating our financial success.
Because that's where it all starts. I spend 99% of my time talking about, what do you believe about money? Because it all starts there. See, the mistake that a lot of us make, Deborah, is this. We begin to load people up with information about this is how do you invest in this mutual fund, this is how you buy this real estate. And they don't need to start that. We need to start about what do you actually believe about money? What did you see growing up in your house? What were the messages your mom and dad told you about money, either consciously or subconsciously, because that's dictating how you're operating now. And then, you hit the nail on the head when you said a lot of people have this unconscious, I won't call it hatred, it might be hatred, of people who have money. And so, okay, how can you accumulate money if you hate it, or you hate people who have money? So we've got to straighten out our relationship with money first before we can accumulate it.
And Dexter, I do believe also that so much of those beliefs, and I want to come back to faith, right? Like so many, like people have basically misinterpreted what the Bible says.
Right.
Specifically around money.
Right.
I love that you bring up Ecclesiastes as well as Proverbs, two of my favorite, books. And within those, within the Bible, there are so many instructions that are so counter to that belief. And so I wonder, especially you as a pastor, why do you think that is? Why do you think that, like, we have this feeling about poverty is good and wealth is bad?
Well, I think most of it comes back to, and I don't want to throw any shade on them, but a lot of it comes back to Roman Catholicism, and where the Catholic Church sort of lifted up the fact that poverty was piety and wealth was wicked. And that's carried over a lot into our churches. And so, I'm speaking mostly African-American church because I'm an African-American pastor. Not that I don't have other races in my church, but that's mostly who I pastor. I pastor Black folk. and so you have to deal with that mindset. But it originated, Deborah, from the Roman Catholic Church, because really there are only two, and I don't mean to get too theological here, but
I want you to. That's the whole point. You can bring this perspective, and I do believe, I do, and that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you. Is because you're on the ground dealing with people, pastoring them. They're struggling. They're trying to understand why they're struggling, and we know that I can give you all the practical information. You can go on internet. You can go on YouTube. There's a plethora of information that will show you what you need to do. But whether or not you actually do it is not necessarily whether you have the resources or money. It all begins with belief.
Because wealth, as you said, I've said, and I've watched you and heard you talk at different times. You didn't say it, but there are intangibles to everything, and there are intangibles to building wealth. And I believe the biggest one is we have to spend so much time, even when I'm preaching or talking about it. I have to get people's permission to allow me to talk about wealth. And I'm like, why do we need to do that? It's okay for you. God says this. He says he wants you to love him and people. As long as you don't love money, he's fine. But the problem is, but the problem is we have heard messages where, the money is the root of all evil, where there's misquoted, it's actually the love of money is the root of all evil. And so we've grown up and we've heard these messages from pulpits, and we've heard a message from Deacon Johnson and Mother so-and-so, and we've carried that into our day-to-day lives. And I'm like, listen, I have to spend so much time, and people who like me have to spend so much time fighting that off in order to get people to say, hey, listen, as long as you keep God first and you treat people well, God has no problem. Well, matter of fact, he's going to judge us based off of how we handled our finances and how we did some other matters. And so people
Preach it. Preach it. We gonna go to church because I'm definitely thinking of the talents, right?
Well, exactly. Matthew chapter 25.
And who was rewarded, not the one that dug what he was given in the ground in fear that something would happen to it, right? But the one who made wise decisions and made them multiply. Nothing like going to church, but when we come back, it's our analyze, optimize, maximize segment. Dexter, I'd like for you to look at this next segment as a lightning round, right?
Okay.
Let's pull everything that we put together around mindset, strategy, and execution with faith and finances in our next segment. So folks, don't go anywhere, because we've talked about mindset, we've talked about strategy, we've talked about execution. And now we're going to talk about what you need to do to really use what you've learned on this program today to accelerate your financial growth. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back.
What's up, y'all? Look, Fanbase is more than a platform. It's a movement to empower creators, offering a unique opportunity for everyday people to invest in Black-owned tech, infrastructure, and help shape the future of social media. Investing in technology is essential for creating long-term wealth and influence in the digital age. The Black community must not only consume tech, we must own it.
Discover how equity crowdfunding can serve as a powerful tool for funding Black businesses, allowing entrepreneurs to raise capital directly through their community through the Jobs Act.
Welcome back, everyone. Now it's time for our Analyze, Optimize, Maximize segment. We've been having a wonderful conversation with Dexter Jenkins on faith and finances. And now, how are you going to actually put everything that we've talked about in action? Dexter, thank you so much for coming on Get Wealthy. As you can see, we're like-minded, and that's why I was so excited to learn about the work that you're doing, because I think specifically in our community that faith plays a big role. African Americans are the largest segment demographic who are church goers even today.
Right.
And yet what we do see, however, Dexter, is that the generation coming behind us, right, are not as avid churchgoers, and I think to that end, I think that the church has to become more relevant. I know for my more relevant, and I would like to just talk about, as you look at it from your purview, what would you say to other pastors, right, or folks in the faith-based community, which is large at all, about just analyzing that, because that's where we're at. What have you found to be effective in merging faith and finances and making it relevant to attract and grow your own ministry?
Well, I think to your point of what has happened in our churches, I just think overall in the body of Christ, it's more of a teaching spirit in the churches now. And so it's not just about when we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing it will be. It's more about, how do I become the father I need to be? How do I become the husband I need to be? Well, if I'm talking about being a better husband, better father, a better follower of Christ, well, money is included in all of those things. So we really have to encourage individuals, and particularly from the pulpits of the leadership, that have these money conversations. And so, I'm part of several pastor masterminds, and that's one of the things that pastors struggle with. How do I talk to people about money without alienating them? And I've never been a pastor that shied away from, because I realized everything that my congregation deals with, everything that we the individual corporately, it deals with finances. And so in order for, the word you used earlier was, in order for us to be relevant, we have to talk about things that matter to people. Money matters. My bishop years ago said to me, He said, Dexter, a lot of times we are scratching where folks are not itching. Or, matter of fact, he said, we're not scratching where folks are itching. Well, they're itching financially. And so we got to be able to talk about those things. How do you do it from a biblical standpoint? How do you keep God first, but still function and do well financially? You can do both.
That's great. And the next aspect of what I wanted to talk about was really optimizing the relationship that folk have with the church. A lot of church services, because of COVID, went virtual.
Right.
And what I found really interesting in the church that I attend in my community is that membership really didn't decline, that people are finding it in some cases even easier to watch online. But to that end, how can you optimize that faith and finances within the church? Do you host actually like financial programs, financial seminars, financial workshops? Can people get plugged in to the right things through your congregation?
Yeah, we've been virtual most of. We are just coming out of a season where we're just beginning to meet again, and so a lot of the things that we did was through YouTube. We did things through StreamYard, and so if people go to our particular church, fellowshipboston.org, and you can find all those things there. But I think just as the body of Christ, I think people have gotten used because of the pandemic. They've gotten used to doing things on Zoom. They've gotten used to doing things online learning. So I think it's a phenomenal opportunity for us to be able to record shows like this, record seminars, these little, 8, 9, or 10-minute snippets where we can teach things either biblically as well as naturally, and then get it out to people. Because to your point, the world is our congregation now. Now we have a local congregation. But, I have people watching me from Jamaica, I have people watching me from Africa. And so I think it's using technology is a phenomenal way for us to be able to get these financial messages out.
Oh, I so agree, because I want to talk about maximizing, right, on that audience, and the fact that you have it for so many, and I know myself included, faith is the way that it gives me fuel. It is community. And yet I feel like we can sometimes reject that which isn't, that change. And really COVID kind of forced us to change. And I know that you've created this a framework for stewardship, ownership, and entrepreneurship. And I'm sure there are other congregations who are going to watch this show here on the Black Star Network. And I wondered if you could share maybe some of the actual practical things that you're doing with your teachings within your congregation.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it we've talked about, the really getting people to see. I like to spend a lot of time, like I said, most of the time mentally dealing with beliefs and thoughts. And so we spend time working through exercise about, what did you see when you were a kid coming up? If you're married, what's your spouse's sort of money personality? What's your money personality? Because if you're married, you're merging money in many respects. And so we spend a lot of time talking to people about that. And then I'm a big real estate guy. And so I began to show people actually how to purchase real estate. And so, all of that takes place within within that framework that we've been talking about this during the show of stewardship, ownership, and entrepreneurship. And so, we have, if people go to my website, dexterbjenkins.com, we have a number of things over there that will allow them to access that. Just on the personal side, but then also from my church, we do that as well. And so just really encouraging individuals to be able to use technology and be able to have these conversations the way we're doing it right now is critical.
And then finally, the question I have for you is, what do you believe? What is the one thing you believe? And I even want our audience to think about that, because we covered a lot of ground today. We talked about our, how our faith can, and our beliefs can impact whether or not we do what we need to do, that mental, that mindset aspect of it is so important. We also talked about our circle, right? And the people who have, depending upon what their goals and aspirations are, how that's going to impact our ability to achieve a certain amount of success, whether it be financially, personally, or professionally. Right. I would love for you to share with the audience, out of everything that we've talked about, as you've counseled people when you were in the financial services industry, as well as through your church and the work that you're doing now, what do you think makes the biggest impact in changing the trajectory and the acceleration of someone when that can make the most impact?
Yeah, I think starting with if faith is at your core, disregard what other people have said and get into the scriptures for yourself, in particular looking at Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. And if you read through those two books, you will see so much practical financial information that you will say, you know what, God thinks this is important. And then if you begin to read through the teachings of Christ, he talks a lot about finances and practical things. And so I think for people who are now we're coming from a Christian standpoint. Now, people who may watch this may come from another perspective, but even most other religions talk about, things such as finance. And so I think we have to come back to, it all starts with us, with scripture. What do scriptures say about this? And if the scriptures say finances is good, I can talk on that. I mean, I can even start in the book of Genesis, in Genesis chapter 1. God talks about, he talks about gold. Well, gold is the universal standard for finances. And he said gold was good. So that means that if God said gold is good, he was saying money is good. And so I have got to agree with what he says, as opposed to what my barbershop said or Big Mama said or whatever. I really got to go back to what the scriptures say. That's the biggest place we got to start.
Oh, I love what you said there. Yeah, the barbershop and beauty shop, man. A lot of information. Before there was the internet, there was the barbershop and the beauty shop.
Tyrone the barber.
Where we got our information. And so often it was not necessarily accurate.
It was wrong.
It was all wrong. Well, Dexter Jenkins, thanks so much for coming on Get Wealthy and sharing with our audience how to merge their faith and finances. Please let folks know how to get in touch with you.
Yeah. Start with DexterBJenkins.com. If you head over there, what I have a free gift. I actually talked about the 3 ships of wealth building. If I got an ebook that you can download there. And then I'm all over social media as Dexter B. Jenkins. So I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter. So you can find me there. But Dexter Jenkins, Dexter B. Jenkins across all social media. And then my website, DexterBJenkins.com.
Outstanding. Well, thanks so much for coming on Get Wealthy. And when we come back, the 3 takeaways from today's show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. Fanbase is a free to download, free to use, next generation social media platform that allows anyone to have followers and subscribers on the same page. Fanbase was built through investment dollars from equity crowdfunding from the Jobs Act. People just like you help build Fanbase, and we're looking for more people to help build Fanbase. We are currently raising $17 million in a Regulation A crowdfund on Start Engine. We've already crossed $2.1 million, but we're looking to raise more capital from people just like you that deserve the opportunity to invest in early stage startups without having to be accredited investors. So right now, I'd like you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase right now, today. And then use Fanbase to connect with friends, grow your audience, and be you without limits.
I'm Deborah Owens. I hope you enjoyed this conversation about faith and finances with Dexter Jenkins. Here are the 3 takeaways from today's show. First, wealth is an inside job. We behave as we believe. Second, wealth is a team sport. The communities that you surround yourself with will impact your ability to achieve the level of success that you want. And then finally, real wealth is about creating a legacy. So it's never about you specifically. It really is about paying it forward to the next generation. Thank you so much for joining us on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.